Please state your name.
My name is Robert Inabinette. I was born in Moss Point, Mississippi, September the 9th, 1931. I am the sixth of 10 children. There was 7 boys and 3 girls. I was left home at the age of 15 because of situations were not good in my home life. And then since that day, and I am 88 today, or was in September, I have never taken any money from anyone I didn't earn, including unemployment, which I paid into. And then to get out of South Mississippi, I worked in a sawmill to make enough money to pay a bus ticket to Independence, Missouri, to live with an older brother, Charles. And I first worked with Western Union, delivering telegrams. And then, I had a brother, just older, that was up in Idaho picking potatoes. And when he came back, he was then 18. And things were not good in those days. And so there were no jobs just hanging around. But the Air Force had become a separate branch of the service in September 25th, I think it was, of 47. So they were looking for all of the warm bodies they could find that could move. And so my brother went down to sign up, and I thought I'll just go with him for the experience. But while he's sitting filling out his application, and incidentally, he had a different last name than mine due to an error on a birth certificate. So the recruiting officer says, why don't you join? And I go, well, no, it's only 16. And so he said, well, how old are you? And I said, 17. And that was the most spontaneous good lie I ever told. Because he said, why don't you join in? I said, do I have to have a birth certificate? And he said, no, you have to have a parent's consent. And so I wrote off a long pleading letter to my mother, who probably was glad to be rid of me anyhow. And she asked my older brother, Mac, what do you think I ought to do? And he says, well, why don't you humor the little wormy bastard, because they won't take him anyhow. But they did. And Mac, I might mention, was my oldest brother, and I had one Charlie, and the next oldest brother was Nathan. And Mac served in Iwo Jima in World War II, Charlie in France, and Nathan in South Pacific until the war's end. Now, my brother Mac was wounded on Iwo Jima, so he saw the flag raised from a hospital ship. Charlie got out and brought home a French war bride, they called him. And then Nate, he got out, and Nathan, my third oldest brother, is now 92, and he still lives in South Mississippi. I moved to let's see. Yes, I joined the service in September 1940, or excuse me, December 17th, 1947. And I was shipped to San Antonio Lackland Air Force Base for basic training, which I went through with my brother, who was 2 years older. And I didn't want anyone, because he had a different name, I didn't want anybody to know we were related, because I was afraid they'd find out I was underage and kick me out. So after that, just went to Denver, Colorado for 3 months of typing school, which I hated, because to me that was a woman's work. Because during the World War II, there was a service called the WACS for women, Women's Air Army Corps, I think it was for the abbreviation. And to me, that just not my job. So I went through 3 months of typing school and graduated with 27 words per minute. And I think it was so low because I mentally didn't want it. So when I went to Japan in July 26, 1948, I was still 16. And they assigned me to a job in the orderly room as a clerk non-typist because I couldn't type fast enough. So they sent me to night school for another typing course. Hallelujah, I graduated with 27 words a minute. So I'm consistently bad. And so I had an opportunity to go to a school for radar operator, which I went. And then after that, I was assigned to Niigata, Japan, which was my first duty station was just 20 miles out of Tokyo. Niigata was like an overnight train ride, very slow train, to Niigata. Well, I should mention that the people in Japan were rather standoffish, but you can understand that I had to wear my uniform, so they were, I can understand if the tables were turned and they were in the United States, it'd be the same. But I did find out that their general attitude was the same as ours. They didn't want the war. The emperor and those people wanted the war. And they were just wanting to get on along with their business. And so I respected them greatly for that. But I remember one time on a train, there was a particular Japanese gentleman that was very sullen-faced. He looked at me and I says, "I think you should smile." He didn't smile. So I went through some silly 16-year-old gigantic gyrations and everything. And finally, he broke into a big smile, and I said, "See, I know I could make you smile." And then, overall, my experiences with the Japanese people were good, and I respected them a lot. Now, as one of the things that amazed me was that people simply adored the Japanese people adored General Douglas MacArthur, who was the supreme commander in Japan, until I'd go down there at times and I'd watch, and the people were just as deep as you can. You'd have thought it was a Trump rally, and there were so many. And so they did that constantly until he left. General MacArthur left to take over the Korean War. And then my time in Niigata as an a radar operator was my best time over there. And toward shortly after I became one, I excelled at it, even though I was only 18 years old. And the controller, which is a Lieutenant Anthony, I still remember his name, he put me in as supervisor of 12 radar operators, which I operated. Well, when the Korean War broke out, I just wanted to go over there because my 3 brothers had seen action, but in the Air Force you don't really see action, especially watching a radar screen. And so I was denied. They had to keep me there to train on the job the Air Force personnel that had gone through a school. I had to do the on-the-job training. Well, one day when I was 18 at the time at Niigata Air Force Base, a group of us airmen went out. We were right close to the shore. And we went out, and it interested me to realize I heard somebody mention soccer today, which is, in those days, that day, we called it water volleyball. I was on the outside of the team, on the rivers, or the ocean side. The other ones were on the shore side. Somebody knocked one over our head, and I could only dog paddle at the time. And so I dog paddled to try to get it, not realizing the tide was going out and taking me and the volleyball with it. And when I finally realized I'm getting way the hell out, I look around, my other buddy was being pulled into shore by his buddies, our buddies. Well, I kept trying, but the tide was taking me further out. And I was getting cramps. I was just exhausted because I could only dog paddle and tread water. And I was it. I started praying to my God for forgiveness for my sins, and I was just about ready to just go under when I heard toward the shore an unusual splash, and I looked around. It was a Japanese fisherman in a little fishing boat, and he drugged me in and took me to shore. And I can tell you, I'm 88 years old now. 77 years after that, I believe in prayer. And I'm proof of it because I have had many good things in my life. I've had 3 bad things. I lost a 16-year-old daughter and a 29-year-old daughter to the automobile. And I don't question my God about it. He's wiser. Overall, I have had a good life. after the service, I went into under the GI Bill. First, I had to get my high school diploma. I only had a 7th grade education, so I took a year getting my high school diploma, only because I had to get California credit and extra mathematics to go to an electronic school, technician school. And so it was quite an experience. And then I went off to electronic school. I went through a year and a half, and we had to drive from Pasadena to Los Angeles over the old Pasadena freeway that was like a giant parking lot. But anyhow, I made it through. I wound up getting a job in aerospace, electronics, in particular environmental test engineering, which meant we tested parts that were going to go on airplanes or missiles to see if they would pass the test. I did 14 years of that, and then was offered a job because in 1970 the aerospace was dying, so my career didn't have a real bright future. I was invited to join a company in heavy-duty truck parts, and that was completely out of my line, but I was offered a job of sales and marketing VP. I took it and was successful with that company, and after 4 years, I bought a little auto parts store and turned it into a heavy-duty truck parts store, which I was really in competition then with my ex-father-in-law, who owned the other one. And so I took that from the first month of $16,000 to on to $100,000 a month, and an inventory of practically nothing to $100,000 and $125,000. And I had that for 10 years. My oldest daughter, my youngest middle daughter, Melissa, she was my right-hand arm in the company. And we were looking for a place to buy, to move our company, because of Anaheim was taking over our property and would have moved us and paid for it. But Melissa got killed before we found it, and that devastated me for the time. And I just closed the company, took my profits, and walked away. I might mention my wife was a professor at Cal State Fullerton, and we were married in '75. So November this month, we'll be married 44 years, and she's a big part of my life. And do you have any questions for me? And how much time do we have left?
There wasn't really a time cap. It's just forever, how long, up to an hour.
I have some more time?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to do is just mention some thoughts on our war and some history. And Russia had a war in Afghanistan for 10 years, And then the United States backed the Taliban by giving them weapons, and I don't know about money, but weapons. Well, Russia got smart after 10 years and pulled out. And then we took over, but the Taliban turned those weapons we gave them on us. And then we have now been in Afghanistan 19 years, or getting close to 20. And in Iraq and Afghanistan, which were both after 9/11, then we have thousands of dead soldiers or military people over there, and many more thousand wounded, a lot of them because of IEDs or improvised explosive devices. And some of our people had 4 limbs blown off. One was, I saw an article in one of my newspaper or my magazines. He had the best attitude of anybody I've ever known, and was helping people that were wounded and had mental problems. Just fantastic. Now, just today, we have 18 million veterans, and the veterans are committing, and some in the military are committing 20 suicides per day. So this is the aftermath of those wars. As of 2016, we had 1.6 million female military, 4 million disabled from the Gulf War, which covered both of those wars over there. 4 million disabled and 40,000 homeless veterans today. We have today 1.3 million active duty military. That amounts to about 0.5% of the population. So you can see how important they are. We also have 1 million ready reserves, they're called, that they get activated sometimes, a few on the border and here and there. And I am all support in pulling all of our military ground troops out of the Middle East or any place they are in danger. The Middle Eastern people have been fighting and killing each other for centuries. We haven't changed their mind a bit. When we pull out a few, the ISIS, the Taliban, and all these people, they start fighting each other. And we haven't changed their mind a bit. They're going to keep it up. They like killing each other, apparently. We have, President Trump agreed to live about 600 or 700 to guard the Syrian oil fields. Why, I don't know. Today we're energy independent, so they should be guarding their own. And we should have our troops home on our southern border. And just in case there's little known history, is something that was called Operation Wetback. It was started by our president during the Depression to help jobs. The illegals were taking jobs. It was started again by President Truman, and again by President Eisenhower, who incidentally was the first president I ever voted for. And if you want to cut me off, just give me the sign. And I think that's about it. So thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. And there is one other thing that I'd like to mention. I have some, they call citizen rule books. That's our Constitution and other important information. These are yours also. And if anyone wants any of those, right there, they're called a citizen rule book, I will be happy to buy however many is desired and supply them. All you have to do is let your teacher know if anybody wants them. And also, I'm gonna leave with you these magazines from the 3 organizations I'm a lifetime member. There's VFW, DAV, and American Legion. And so if we're done, I thank you very much.
We have one more thing. Just one more. So some elementary school students made some special signs just for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And do you want any of that information?
For sure, for sure.
You're free to take those. Pass them around. It gives you a good insight on things. And that one is the one. If anybody wants them, let me know. Let your teacher know, and I'll be glad to order them for you. And thanks again for this opportunity. Just, I know we're off the air now, but I wanted to make an interesting observation for you. When I was a kid in South Mississippi, and people got raggedy jeans, they were considered poor. But if they were patched, it meant you were poor. But your mother could stitch on a patch. And I noticed today you have to pay more for raggedy jeans, which are considered designer jeans, than you do for regular ones. Just an observation.
Thank you.
Thank you.